So Donald Trump has once again threatened to imprison his political opponents. So this was last night, Saturday night. PBS News reports that former President Trump posted a warning on his social media site, that is Truth Social, threatening to jail those, quote, involved in unscrupulous behavior this election, which he said would be under intense scrutiny. Quote, when I win, those people that cheated will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences so that this depravity of justice does not happen again. He went on to write, please beware that this legal exposure extends to lawyers, political operatives, donors, illegal voters, and corrupt election officials. Those involved in unscrupulous behavior will be sought out, caught, and prosecuted at levels unfortunately never seen before in our country. Unfortunately, so he's bemoaning that they haven't done this sooner. Well, he was president and he didn't prosecute Hillary Clinton. So who knows? But the fact that he's even making these threats is quite concerning, quite alarming. I mean, there's just no false equivalence here. No matter what you think about other issues, you might think that Donald Trump and Kamala Harris are both screwed up on the issue of the border. They both have bad tax policy. They both have bad social policy, bad environmental policy, that they're not aggressive enough against climate change, what have you. Well, one of these candidates is campaigning on prosecuting their political opponents, promising long prison sentences for them. The other is not. There's just no false equivalency. And it's something that should lead centrists, basically most people who aren't pretty hard right, to say, hold on here, this is not normal. There's one candidate that's running on prosecuting his political opponents, and prosecuting them, mind you, for something that didn't even happen. There was no cheating in the 2020 election, the 2024 election. Former President Trump has produced no evidence that there will be cheating in the 2024 election. Now, Trump campaign aides, PBS writes, and his allies have urged him to keep his focus on Kamala Harris and to make the election instead a referendum on issues like inflation and border security. So his own campaign aides, they're smart enough to know this isn't the right move. This is a really good way to alienate those normie voters by talking about prosecuting and imprisoning people based on the vague notion that they, quote, cheated or engaged in unscrupulous behavior. So yeah, this is screwed up. I mean, and I know what pro-Trump types would say. They'll say, well, the Democrats are actually prosecuting their political opponents. They prosecuted Trump and he was found guilty of 34 counts of fraud or whatever. So obviously they're just bullying him with the DOJ. Well, not exactly. I mean, there's no evidence that Joe Biden or Kamala Harris are actually involved in prosecuting Donald Trump. None whatsoever. They do not have control over this. And furthermore, they kind of undercut their own argument when they talk about Biden and his administration being involved in this, when they also point out that Biden can barely complete a sentence and his brain's not even functioning well at all. So yeah, really, which is it? Democrats are not prosecuting their political opponents. They're not threatening to imprison people based on the notion that there was, quote, cheating in the presidential election. They've not done that. So yeah, it's a total false equivalence to say both parties are equally authoritarian in that regard. Well, the Democrats have their problems. They've pushed some policies that are questionable. They've had some divisive tendencies before. But there's one party in this election that clearly stands out as more divisive, more authoritarian than the other. And I know that a lot of right-wing media are unfortunately probably going to ignore things like this. They're going to keep pushing stories that make Trump seem more palatable to the average voter. They're going to keep pushing stories about how Kamala Harris isn't talking about policy or is supposedly an authoritarian. But they won't look you in the eye and talk about their own candidate's major shortcomings, his own authoritarian tendencies, and they'll try their best to just whitewash them. So yeah, keep stories like this in mind when people push the idea that Trump is a constitutional candidate who cares about freedom. He's not authoritarian. He's fighting for everyone. he's not divisive. Harris is the real divisive one. Well, no. There's plenty of evidence to the contrary, actually, and this story is another example of that. So yeah, just something that I thought was interesting for this election cycle. If you liked the video or found it helpful or insightful, please leave a like, comment, or subscribe. I really do appreciate it. Thank you very much for watching.